Hi guys, this is going to be my review of the Heybike Ranger folding e-bike. I put lots of miles on it already and ready to give you a full impression of it. I've got a little list I'm going through. It's not going to be a high production value video or anything, just one take and going through my, my note sheet. Okay, first of all, the weight. One of the main reasons I bought this is because it's a folding bike. You can see by the hinge here and then the hinge here on the stem. But I forgot to check the weight, and with the fat tires and with the fact that it weighs 71 pounds, it's not something that I'm going to be able to get into the trunk of my sedan there without throwing my back out. So do consider that if you're going to get one that's heavy and powerful like this, and you're planning on folding it and storing it, make sure you have some kind of a better plan than I did. It'd work in an SUV or a tall hatchback or a pickup truck or a van, but not going to work in a sedan. So there's that. You got the tires here are 4-inch wide fat tires, knobbies, and they are guilty of adding a lot of weight there. So that's part of it, and it also makes it so when you fold it, it's pretty thick. There's been some comments about fat tires are not as puncture resistant in general unless you take some kind of action like filling the tubes with slime or putting a liner in the tire. I think I'm more apt to put the liner in than to do the slime. Another thing, looking at the pictures online, is the rack. And from some angles it looks like it might be integral, but it's actually not. There's actually mounting points down in there. Right. Yep. There and here. So it's not integral. It's pretty beefy, but probably don't want to be putting a 100-pound kit on it or anything. I'm thinking that they should integrate it as an idea for a future model. If they integrate it, that would be kind of cool. Just make it part of the frame, because or I don't know, maybe they wanted to make an option here for a different kind of rack, or maybe in Asia they make it higher and it's a taller seat. So maybe that's on purpose. All right, the brakes are mechanical disc brakes. They're plenty strong, but they're very squeaky. I haven't done anything to adjust them or anything. It might be possible to get some of that out, but they're pretty squeaky. So be ready for that. The pedals are also squeaky, and I think that's going to be an easy one to fix. I think all I'll have to do is just get in behind here and get some oil in there. It's the only thing that can be squeaking like that when I'm riding. The seat, it looks cushy, but it has this perennial cutout here that looks like it would give you some comfort, but it doesn't really seem to help much. So I'm probably gonna replace that seat, and I'll see if I can do that and still keep this shock in the seat post. On the other hand, if I do that, then I'll lose this provision here where you can flip that up so that you can slide the battery out. All right. The lights are excellent. Take a look here at the headlight. You can see it's got some optics, and it's got a reflector there beneath in case it craps out or whatever. But that really lights up the road pretty well. It's got 4 LEDs. It's got a heat vent. It's pretty easy to aim. When you put it together, you just loosen up this Phillips screw a little bit and then aim it until you get it where you want it. And then the rear light is placed nicely here, just below the rack. And the default mode for that is that if the lights are not on and you squeeze a brake, then it blinks. If the lights are on, then it's a solid on, and it blinks when you squeeze it. And this is one thing I liked about this model, was that it's got a decent light set just built right into it. You don't have to buy it, or they don't try and sell it to you as an accessory or anything. All right, the display here I don't have the key on me, but you wouldn't be able to tell it under the lighting anyway. It's got a pretty cool looking reverse LCD. So it's light digits on a dark background. And it's got 2 different intensity settings that you can control with this button here. But the brightest one doesn't make it bright enough to really be too visible during the day. You find yourself having to shade it if you really want to see it. It would have been smarter to go with just a traditional positive LCD and then have a backlight that could be turned on or off. The fenders, they're good quality, and I like they have nice thick stays here. They're not flopping around, they're not rubbing or anything like that. So I guess not much to say about that, except for if we step back a little bit here, you can see that that front one doesn't really go down far enough to protect your feet and ankles from being splashed. So you're gonna, if you're riding in the rain or through puddles or whatever, and you have your dress, your work pants on, you're gonna find that they're splashed up. And not many e-bikes have fenders that go all the way down. When you see a front fender that goes all the way down, you know that someone really put some thought into the design and, all-weather commuting. And speaking of all-weather commuting, they specifically warn in the manual not to ride this in the rain or to get it wet, which is, I think that's pretty dicey to say that. They should take some steps to make it more water resistant if that's what it needs. And it might just be that they're trying to cover their butts a little bit. The contacts for the battery are in this tray here. They're pretty well protected. But I guess they're probably worried with these fat tires and everything. People are going to go riding through really deep puddles and maybe get this submerged and screw something up. And by the way, I looked at the pricing for a replacement battery pack in case that is needed, and right now they're getting $500 for a battery pack. So if I do wear out a battery pack, I'll probably look into having this one rebuilt by someone else, or maybe even buy tabs and a welder and do it myself. All right, the general construction. One thing you want to look for on Chinese built items is if the welding is good, and the welds here are really good. Even the front rack mounting points, the frame, everywhere you see a weld, it's actually good. There's no splatter that they didn't take care of, and there's no gaps. They did a good job welding it. One critique I have is the seat post here. This is at about maximum extension, and I'm 5'8" with a 30-inch inseam, and that's just barely tall enough for me to get full leg extension. So if you have more than a 30-inch inseam, you're going to find that you can't get full leg extension without some kind of an extender or a longer seat post. A general thing, I researched this a lot before I bought it. It's not the cheapest of the Chinese brands with these specs. It's got a 48 volt, 15 amp hour battery pack and a 500 watt hub motor. You can get one for, $300 or $400 less with those specs, but if you look into the reviews, and especially at the amount of negative reviews, you'll find that a lot of those companies, they just want to sell you the bike and they just abandon you. And if you try to return it, then they charge you, $150 for returning it. So I found that Heybike had a good reputation for customer service, even if they're not based in the United States. Another thing I appreciated was that when I put it together, and when I say put it together, I mean unfolded this, put the front wheel on, and there's not too much to do, but when I put it together, the shifter was not exactly right. But after a few miles and after a few shifts and it broke in, it was tuned in. So it was like they considered the cable stretch when they tuned it from the factory. So that was a nice touch, not having to mess around with tuning the shifter. Another cool thing about them is these hand grips. They seem to be leather. If they're not real leather, they did a really good job faking it. But they feel really good. They look good. Okay, another thing is here, going over to the other side, you can see that there's they have a nice strong wire guard for the rear derailleur in case it bumps on something. So I was glad to see that. Little armor there. It came with a bottle cage. I don't know about you, but when I buy a bike at a bike shop for $500 or $1,000 or whatever, and then they don't give you a bottle cage, they don't throw that in, that kind of pisses me off. So it was nice to see that they included a bottle cage. It seems like it's aluminum too. Another nice touch that I noticed was that for this wiring harness that comes out of the handlebar here, it's got just a Velcro closure. So if you have to do anything, if you have to replace the computer or anything like that, you can just take off the Velcro sleeve. It keeps it all bundled nicely. It's like a thin neoprene, and it's, you know, it's not just a bunch of zip ties. So that was a nice touch. I mentioned earlier that the headlight is easily aimed. Another thing, they had a lesser model heybike. I forget what it's called. Oh, the Mars. It's called the Mars. It's a little bit less expensive, a couple $100 less. One of the reasons I went with this one is not only is it a class 3, so it's a little faster, but it has cast wheels instead of having you know, the regular conventional wheels with spokes. I figure spokes are one thing that over time they loosen up, or you don't want to have to worry about the wheel getting out of true or anything like that. So I was happy to pay a little bit extra and get one with cast wheels. Now onto something that people don't think about is the battery charger. It's a big power brick type battery charger. But one thing is, for my day job, I'm a regulatory electrical engineer. So I always look at the certifications and the safety and everything like that. And I used to work at UL, and UL is the top safety certification agency in the United States. So I'm glad to see that they got a proper UL listing on that. CE is for Europe, but that doesn't always mean as much because it's self-declared. So if you trust the company, then it means something, and if not, then it means nothing. And then the rest of this is double insulated FCC for electromagnetic emission. Don't throw it out. Household use. Don't store it outside. 5 amp fuse in here somewhere. It does run pretty warm when it's charging. It's don't be alarmed if it's, you know, it'll be just warm enough that you wouldn't want to have your hand on it too long, but it's not warm enough that you would worry about it starting fire or being abnormal. So good job on the power supply / battery charger. Coming back to the bike for a minute, it does have front suspension, which I liked, and then the shock and the seat post. The seat's kind of cushy, and then the big fat tires are another level of suspension. So this suspension, it doesn't have a proper suspension on the rear of the bike. That would have made it cost a lot more and weigh a lot more. But this was a good job on this, and part of that is the front shocks. And a cool thing about the shocks is that they're adjustable, and you can, on this side, you can lock it. I don't want to focus, but you can lock it there, and you can adjust it on this side. So it's adjustable. I haven't really touched it, but it's nice to know that I can if I need to. I mentioned the battery pack costs $500. Hopefully that means that they have good cells in it. Maybe I'll find out one day and update the video comment, but you can see here that there's some certification marks on that. It's FCC, CE for Europe, and there's some more on the other side. I don't remember what they are. But it seems like a decent quality battery pack. And by the way, that locks in here, so you have 3 positions on the key here. You put it in, it's an off now, and it's locked in with the little pin that goes through back here. And if you push it in and turn it counterclockwise, it unlocks it so that you can fold this handle and pull it out. And then of course, full clockwise, another click is turn it on and have it ready to go. One thing I'd like to see too is with the flat tire concern, with something like this where you have the ability to get miles and miles away, if you were to get I'm getting a T-storm out there, sorry for the background noise. If you were to get a flat tire on some trail and you're 20 miles away from home, that would be a bummer of a walk dragging this thing along. So it would be nice if they would include some kind of puncture resistant liner on the inside of the tire. And I'm sure they could source that pretty cheaply. I mentioned the sturdy fender stays, that's a nice touch. And one thing to watch for when you're assembling this, the main step is putting the front wheel on. And I found that it's almost going to be impossible to get everything aligned if you're doing it by yourself, if you have the bike right side up. But what they don't mention in the manual is that you can flip the bike over and it becomes very easy. So when you're putting that front wheel on, flip it over, do it on something soft with the seat mostly down. You want to do it on grass or cardboard or something so you don't scratch the paint up on the back of your rack. But anyway, after about 50 miles or so, I'm really happy with this bike. I hope it continues to perform the way I would like it to. I should mention the speed that I'm seeing. It'll go up to about 24 miles an hour on flat ground without pedaling. And if you pedal as fast as your little heart can, you'll get it up to about 27. But it's not really geared for 27 miles an hour. It'll only assist up to about 24, and then the highest speed on the rear cassette is just like you're going to be pumping like as fast as you can to get it to 27. So don't worry about going any faster than that. It is plenty fast. Oh, and then by the way, one other thing that I like about this is that this is programmable, and Heybike actually gives you instructions on how to do it. If you look at their website, they have a supplemental instruction specifically on how to change the speed settings. It comes from the factory with three settings, 0, 1, 2, and 3 for the pedal assist. And 3 is like the top speed. So you're not missing out on any top speed, but you're missing out on some low speeds and some medium speeds. And they tell you how to adjust it for either 7 speeds or 9 speeds, and then you can set the percentage of power that it gives for each one. And they tell you how to do it either. They're not being too defensive about that. So I really appreciate that. Nice job, Heybike. Anyway, I recommend this, and I'll update the video comments as we go, and I'll put some links down there and so forth. So thanks for watching. See you for the next one.